In an age where we can track a phone across continents and follow a delivery in real time, how does an entire Boeing 777 with 239 souls aboard vanish without a trace? How does the ocean swallow its secret so completely that the world's best technology, countless ships and satellites, fail to find it? This is the story of Flight MH370, the search that defied time-tested human limits and left a haunting question. Could this be the mission that finally brings the truth to light? Imagine this, it's 2014. In an era where we can track packages across continents and see a friend's location in real time, how could something as massive as a Boeing 777 simply disappear? How could 239 souls vanish into the night sky, leaving behind no clear trace? This is the haunting question that would grip the world for the next decade. It all began on March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. A routine overnight journey departed from Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m. local time. The destination, Beijing, China. The skies were calm, and the flight was expected to be uneventful, a standard trip across familiar airways. On board were 239 people, from 14 nations' families returning home, business travelers, students, and holidaymakers. In the cockpit was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a seasoned pilot with over 18,000 hours of flight experience. By his side, First Officer Farik Abdulhamid, young and capable. The cabin crew professionals ready for what they thought would be just another night shift. As the aircraft climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, everything appeared normal. At 1:07 a.m., the onboard Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, or ACARS, sent what would be its final message. Routine. Nothing out of place. Then, at 1:19 a.m., came the last voice contact from the cockpit. Captain Zahari's calm words crackled over the radio. "Good night, Malaysian 370. That was it. The last anyone would ever hear from the flight. 2 minutes later, the aircraft's transponder, the critical device that identifies the plane to radar systems, was turned off. Not malfunctioned, not failed. It was switched off intentionally. What followed was as chilling as it was baffling. Civilian radar lost the aircraft entirely, but military radar, it kept watching. The plane didn't simply vanish. It made an unexpected deliberate turn westward, crossing back over the Malay Peninsula and heading towards the Andaman Sea. Like a ghost ship in the sky, MH370 flew on for nearly an hour following a path no one could explain. By 2:22 a.m., the plane was seen on radar for the final time about 200 nautical miles northwest of Penang Island. And then it was gone. But was it really gone? Incredibly, satellite data would later reveal that the aircraft continued sending out hourly handshakes, brief electronic pings between 3:41 and 8:19 a.m. The last of these ghostly signals, known as a log-on request, likely came just before the plane exhausted its fuel. After that silence. Malaysia's response in those crucial early hours was at best confused. It wasn't until 6:30 a.m., 4 hours after contact was lost, that search and rescue operations began. And at 7:24 a.m., Malaysia Airlines made its first public statement. But by then, the damage was done. Precious time had slipped away. The initial search focused on the South China Sea, where the flight had first gone missing from radar. Dozens of ships and aircraft scoured the waters, but they were looking in the wrong place. The plane had already veered far off course. Grief rippled across the world. In Beijing, families gathered at the airport waiting for news that never came. Some sobbed. Some demanded answers. All were united in heartbreak. The unimaginable had happened. A modern jetliner had disappeared without explanation. On March 15th, Malaysia's Prime Minister, Najib Razak, delivered a devastating update. Satellite data indicated that MH370 had flown for hours after losing contact and had likely ended its journey in the southern Indian Ocean. 2 possible flight paths were identified, one heading northwest towards Central Asia and one heading southwest into the desolate southern seas. The evidence pointed firmly to the latter. But what could cause such a fate? Sabotage, mechanical failure, hijacking. A deliberate act by someone on board. Theories abounded from the plausible to the conspiratorial, and in the absence of hard evidence, speculation flourished. And so the greatest aviation mystery of the modern age was born. A mystery not just of metal and machinery, but of human lives and human loss. The disappearance of MH370 didn't just challenge technology, it shook our faith in it. In a world that prides itself on connectivity, the idea that a 200-ton aircraft could slip through the cracks was unthinkable. As the search began in earnest, so did a race against time and against the vastness of the ocean itself. The world would soon discover that finding MH370 was a challenge like no other. And yet the hope of bringing answers to the families left behind would drive a global effort spanning years. Could the world's best technology solve a puzzle that began with just 4 chilling words, "Goodnight, Malaysian 370"? The search was about to begin, and it would test the limits of human determination and technological might. Stay with us as we move into Chapter 2, The Search Begins. What does it take to find a needle in an ocean-sized haystack? In the hours and days after MH370 vanished, the world would begin to understand just how impossible that task could be. In the early light of March 8, 2014, confusion reigned. The Kuala Lumpur Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center wasn't activated until after 5:30 a.m., more than 4 hours after MH370 had last made contact. 4 hours. In that time, the plane could have traveled across entire countries, and yet no one knew where it was. When the search finally began, all eyes turned to the South China Sea, the last place the aircraft had been seen on civilian radar. Malaysia scrambled ships and aircraft. China, desperate for answers about its citizens on board, sent a fleet of vessels. The United States, Australia, Vietnam, and others joined in. By March 9th, a full day later, the search had grown massive. Over 40 aircraft and more than 20 ships swept the waters. But they were looking in the wrong place. Behind the scenes, a chilling revelation had emerged. Military radar data showed that MH370 hadn't gone down in the South China Sea. Instead, it had made that mysterious westward turn, crossing the Malay Peninsula and flying out over the Andaman Sea. This discovery forced officials to rethink everything. On March 12th, Malaysia announced the military's radar tracking, confirming that the aircraft had passed northwest of Penang Island into the Andaman Sea. The search area shifted. India was asked to assist, and with each passing hour, the zone to be searched grew exponentially. International cooperation became both a strength and a strain. On the surface, 26 nations united: Malaysia, Australia, China, the U.S., and many more. They provided ships aircraft satellites. But beneath that cooperation, cracks appeared. Some nations hesitated to share sensitive military radar data. Satellite imagery took precious time to process and release. And behind every delay, families waited, aching for news. By March 15th, Malaysia's Prime Minister, Najib Razak, addressed the world. The evidence was now undeniable. MH370 had flown for hours after disappearing from radar. Satellite data pointed to 2 possible corridors, one stretching northwest towards Kazakhstan and Central Asia, the other plunging southwest into the vast emptiness of the southern Indian Ocean. It was the latter that drew the most attention and the most dread. The southern Indian Ocean is among the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth. Waves can tower stories high. The nearest ships are often hundreds of miles apart. The search area, almost unimaginable. Millions of square kilometers, an area larger than India. The phrase "needle in a haystack" no longer seemed adequate. Australia, situated closest to this new search zone, stepped up. Its Maritime Safety Authority took the lead. By March 17th, the focus had shifted yet again, this time to a brutal stretch of ocean southwest of Perth. Planes flew for hours just to reach the search area before they could even begin their work. What followed was one of the most intense and expensive search efforts in aviation history. 29 aircraft, 6 helicopters, and 18 ships scoured the sea. Satellites from across the globe captured images of wave tops, scanning for signs of debris. China alone deployed 20 satellites to assist. For families of those aboard MH370, hope flickered and dimmed with each passing day. In Beijing, in Kuala Lumpur, in cities across the world, loved ones waited. They gathered in hotel ballrooms converted to crisis centers, clinging to updates that offered little comfort. Some wept openly. Others lashed out in frustration at officials who could offer no clear answers. And then on March 24, 2014, came the announcement that broke 1,000 hearts. Malaysia's Prime Minister, with solemn gravity, shared the conclusion drawn from all available data: Flight MH370 had ended in the southern Indian Ocean. There were no survivors. No wreckage had been found, but the satellite signals, the last handshakes from the plane, could mean nothing else. The news was devastating. Families were informed not in person, but in some cases by text message. Can you imagine learning of the loss of your loved one through a cold, impersonal line of text? The pain was indescribable. But for searchers, the mission was far from over. Attention shifted from the surface of the ocean to the depths below. If debris hadn't been found floating, perhaps it lay on the seabed, waiting to be discovered. The surface search, massive though it was, officially ended on April 28, 2014. By then, 4.5 million square kilometers of ocean had been searched, an area larger than all of India. And still the ocean gave up no clues. International tensions simmered beneath the waves of cooperation. Some countries accused others of withholding data. Some questioned whether more could have been done faster. And always in the background, the families watched, waited, and hoped. But hope is a fragile thing, especially when faced with the endless, empty sea. The transition to deep-sea search marked a new phase one that would require not just ships and planes, but advanced technology and unshakable resolve. The ocean had swallowed MH370 whole. Now the world was determined to dive into its depths to find the truth. Could the ocean keep its secret forever? Or would the next phase of the search finally unlock the answers so many long for? Stay with us as we move into Chapter 3, Into the Deep. Beneath miles of water, could the answers to one of aviation's greatest mysteries lie hidden in the dark? As the surface search for MH370 drew to a close with no debris in sight, the world's focus shifted to the deep. If the plane hadn't left traces above, perhaps its secrets were locked below on the ocean floor, far beyond the reach of ordinary search teams. In May 2014, a new phase of the mission began. Australia, leading the international effort, brought in specialized vessels, including the Ocean Shield equipped with cutting-edge technology. Its primary tool, the towed Pinger Locator 25, a device designed to pick up the acoustic signals emitted by a plane's black box. These pings, if they could be heard, might lead searchers straight to MH370. But the odds were against them. The black box's locator beacon was designed to transmit for about 30 days. By the time the Ocean Shield was in position, those days had passed. Still, hope remained that some residual signal might be detected. The towed Pinger Locator was deployed, scouring a 240-kilometer stretch of ocean floor. Days turned into weeks and then into months. The ocean was silent, no pings, no signals, no answers. It was then that searchers realized the scale of the challenge. The southern Indian Ocean was not just vast, it was treacherous and largely unmapped. Beneath the waves lay a world of towering underwater mountains, deep trenches, jagged ridges, and shifting sediment. Searching here wasn't like looking across a flat plain, it was like exploring an underwater Grand Canyon in pitch blackness. To overcome this, the mission pivoted. Advanced sonar mapping began in earnest. Over the course of 2 years between 2014 and 2016, search teams meticulously mapped 279,000 square kilometers of seabed territory that had until then been a blank spot on humanity's map of the Earth. These surveys revealed extraordinary detail: hidden volcanoes, vast cliffs, deep canyons. But of the plain, no trace. The deep-sea search became one of the most extensive and expensive of its kind. Specialized sonar equipment, side-scan imaging, and remotely operated vehicles combed the depths. The effort cost over $150 million, funded largely by Malaysia, Australia, and China. And yet the ocean remained silent. And then a glimmer of hope. On July 29, 2015, more than a year after the plane disappeared, a piece of debris washed ashore on Reunion Island, a tiny speck of land in the Indian Ocean. It was a flaperon, a part of a plane's wing. Tests confirmed what families and searchers had long feared: it belonged to MH370. The discovery was bittersweet. On one hand, it offered the first hard evidence that the aircraft had indeed ended its flight in the southern Indian Ocean. On the other, it raised more questions. Why had no other wreckage been found? Could the plane's remains have settled in an area yet unsearched? Over the following months and years, more fragments appeared: a horizontal stabilizer piece in Mozambique, a portion of the engine cowling in South Africa, a wing flap in Tanzania. Each piece was like a breadcrumb confirming the southern Indian Ocean as the resting place of MH370, but none provided the crucial clue as to where on the seafloor the main wreckage lay. Behind the scenes, frustration mounted. The terrain of the search area complicated matters further. Some experts began to suspect that the plane might not have crashed onto a flat seabed as first thought. Instead, they theorized MH370 could have struck the side of an undersea ridge or canyon, breaking apart and becoming buried in sediment or hidden among jagged rocks. By January 2017, after nearly 3 years of relentless searching and the mapping of 120,000 square kilometers of ocean floor in their priority zone, officials called off the official search. The mission had cost $155 million. Malaysia had covered 58% of the cost, Australia 32%, and China 10%. But despite all that effort, the ocean still guarded its secret. For the families, the end of the official search was devastating. After years of waiting, of hoping, with every new mission update, they were told that the search was over. The void of uncertainty remained, but not for long. In 2018, a private company, Ocean Infinity, stepped in. With funding independent of government mandates and driven by technological ambition, Ocean Infinity offered a fresh approach. Using a fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, essentially robotic submarines, they combed the seabed with more precision than ever before. These drones worked in parallel, diving deep and scanning the ocean floor in incredible detail. Over the course of their mission, they searched another 112,000 square kilometers. And yet again, no sign of MH370. But while the plane's remains eluded them, Ocean Infinity's work wasn't in vain. The data gathered during their search revolutionized our understanding of the southern Indian Ocean. Their detailed maps now serve not only aviation investigations, but climate science, oceanography, and even future search operations. Still, the question lingered: how could such a massive object, an entire plane, vanish so completely? Even after all this effort, the mystery deepened, but so did the resolve of those determined to solve it. As the world moved on from the tragedy, a quiet promise endured. The ocean might have hidden MH370's secret for years, but humanity wasn't done searching. With new technology on the horizon and new theories taking shape, hope remained that one day the deep would give up its answer. Stay with us as we move into Chapter 4, The Rise of the Drones. Could technology succeed where human effort had failed? By 2018, the official search for MH370 had ended. Governments had invested hundreds of millions of dollars, mapped uncharted ocean floors, and scoured vast swaths of the southern Indian Ocean. And still, the wreckage of the plane remained hidden, as elusive as ever. But the story was far from over. Enter Ocean Infinity, a private company with a bold vision. Where others saw an impossible challenge, they saw opportunity and a chance to push the limits of technology. Their proposition was simple yet revolutionary: let machines do what human-led missions could not. Ocean Infinity deployed a fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, robotic submarines, capable of diving as deep as 6,000 meters, operating independently for days at a time and scanning the ocean floor with unmatched precision. Each AUV was equipped with advanced sonar systems, side-scan sonar for sharp imagery of the seafloor multibeam, sonar for 3D terrain mapping, synthetic aperture sonar for detecting small objects, and sub-bottom profilers to peer beneath layers of sediment. Unlike traditional search vessels, Ocean Infinity could launch multiple AUVs simultaneously. This parallel deployment dramatically increased search efficiency, and the best part, they offered their services on a no-find, no-fee basis. If they didn't locate MH370, they wouldn't charge a cent. It was a risk, but also a testament to their confidence in the technology. In early 2018, their search began. The mission covered another 112,000 square kilometers of ocean floor, focusing on areas previously unsearched or just on the edge of earlier zones. The drones worked tirelessly, mapping the seabed in extraordinary detail, but again, no wreckage. The ocean kept its secret. Still, the data gathered was far from wasted. The high-resolution maps created during Ocean Infinity's mission transformed scientific understanding of the southern Indian Ocean. Researchers studying climate change, ocean currents, and marine ecosystems gained invaluable insights. In a way, the search for MH370 had gifted humanity a better understanding of one of Earth's last great frontiers. But for the families waiting for answers, that was small comfort. The pain of not knowing lingered, and so did the determination to keep looking. By 2025, Ocean Infinity was ready to try again, but this time with even more advanced tools. Their new flagship vessel, the Armada 7806, was a marvel of modern engineering. Built in 2023 by a Norwegian company, the ship was 78 meters long and packed with state-of-the-art technology. More than just a vessel, it was a floating command center for a new generation of search tools. The Armada 7806 deployed an upgraded fleet of AUVs built by Kongsberg, capable of diving to depths of 6,000 meters and remaining submerged for up to 100 hours. These machines weren't just tough, they were smart. Artificial intelligence now played a central role in the mission. AI systems processed vast amounts of data, in real time analyzing sonar images, detecting anomalies, and cross-referencing findings with satellite and ocean current models. And once again, Ocean Infinity committed to a no-find, no-fee deal. The reward, a staggering $70 million, but only if they succeeded. The stakes had never been higher. The search zone was refined, informed by a decade of reanalyzed satellite data, ocean drift studies, and a new tool, WSPR Weak Signal Propagation Reporter technology, originally developed for amateur radio enthusiasts to track weak signals bouncing around the globe. WSPR was now being used to trace MH370's possible path. Some experts believe the radio anomalies detected on March 8, 2014, aligned with the aircraft's final flight path. Others were skeptical, dismissing the signals as too faint to offer reliable guidance. Still, it was one more clue, one more chance to narrow the search. Operations began in February 2025. The target, a 15,000 square kilometer stretch of the southern Indian Ocean, including areas never searched before. It was a region marked by underwater cliffs, ridges, and even a submerged volcano, a treacherous landscape where wreckage could easily hide. The terrain added to the challenge, but also fed hope. Perhaps the wreck had been there all along, concealed by the seabed's natural camouflage. One of the mission's greatest strengths was its ability to launch multiple drones at once, covering more ground faster. Each dive brought back terabytes of data that AI helped sift through in record time. The synergy of human expertise and machine precision marked a new era in deep-sea exploration. But technology wasn't the only force driving this renewed effort. Behind every sonar scan and drone dive lay the simple human need for answers. Families of MH370's passengers and crew had endured over a decade of uncertainty. Their plea was the same as it had been from the start: find the wreckage, find the truth, let us heal. And so the Armada 7806 sailed on its drones, combing the depths, its crew driven by both science and empathy. The mission would take months, perhaps up to 18, battling harsh ocean conditions and navigating a search area far from shipping lanes and human activity. But for the first time in years, it felt as if the world might finally be closing in on the mystery. Was this the mission that would succeed where all others had failed? Could the ocean, after so long, be ready to surrender its secret? Stay with us as we move into Chapter 5, The Final Hope. Is the ocean finally ready to give up its secret? After more than a decade of searching, guessing, and grieving, the renewed mission in 2025 felt different. The stakes were higher, the technology was smarter, and the determination stronger than ever. The new search zone, carefully mapped out after years of reanalyzing data, lay between 560 and 400 kilometers west of Perth, Australia. It wasn't just empty sea. Beneath the waves was a hidden world of deep canyons, sharp ridges, towering underwater mountains, and even a submerged volcano. This was no flat seabed. It was a labyrinth, a place where wreckage could lie unseen for years, cloaked in shadow and sediment. Richard Godfrey, an aerospace engineer who had dedicated years to studying MH370's disappearance, pointed to a location at 29,520 km south, 99 to 930 km east. His analysis, drawing on the controversial WSPR radio signal data, suggested the plane had crashed near an underwater slope, a treacherous location where debris could easily remain hidden. But Godfrey wasn't the only voice in the debate. Another expert, Dr. Vincent Line, proposed a different site, 33.0 Gordig south, 100.2 Mayavandig east. His models, based on ocean drift patterns and other clues, pointed slightly farther south. The two locations weren't far apart in global terms, but in a search like this, a few dozen kilometers could mean the difference between success and another dead end. It was almost like watching two detectives chase different suspects in the same cold case. Both were convinced they were on the right trail. Both had evidence, and both knew the ocean wouldn't make it easy. The Armada 7806 and its fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles pressed on. Day after day, the drones dove into the depths, navigating canyons and ridges, scanning with sonar so advanced it could detect objects no bigger than a suitcase. AI algorithms flagged anomalies, spots that didn't match the natural patterns of the seabed. Each was investigated in detail. Some turned out to be rocks, others strange formations shaped by the currents. And still the search continued. For the families, every report brought hope and heartache. They had lived in limbo for so long. They had imagined and reimagined their loved ones' final moments 1,000 times. They had clung to rumors, breakthroughs, disappointments, and now once again they waited. And as the drones worked, so did the analysts. The data came in terabytes at a time. AI sorted through it, highlighting areas for the human experts to review. And here technology met the human eye, because no algorithm could fully replace experience, intuition, or the careful scrutiny of someone who knew what to look for. This wasn't just about finding wreckage. It was about closing a chapter that had haunted aviation history, reshaped safety protocols, and shaken confidence in modern tracking technology. It was about honoring the lives lost people who had boarded a plane expecting to arrive, not to vanish. And there was another layer to the mission. The southern Indian Ocean remained one of Earth's last true wildernesses. The high-resolution maps created during this search would serve science for generations, helping climate modelers, oceanographers, and even future rescue missions. In a way, the search for MH370 wasn't just about solving a mystery. It was about exploring and understanding the world's most remote places. But exploration comes with risks. The weather in the search zone was unforgiving. Storms could whip up massive waves in hours. The window for operations between January and April was narrow. Every dive counted. Every hour mattered. And yet, despite all the challenges, something felt different this time. The combination of AI, advanced sonar, multi-drone deployment, and refined search zones offered hope that hadn't existed before. For the first time in years, the pieces seemed to fit together. The data, the technology, the determination, they were all pointing in the same direction. Still, the mission was far from over. The ocean guards its secrets well. The search area, while smaller than previous zones, was still massive, roughly the size of a major city, but with terrain more complex than any urban landscape. Imagine trying to find scattered debris across a city-sized maze of cliffs, craters, and canyons all underwater, in the dark at crushing pressures. And so, the world watched. As updates trickled out, the question echoed in newsrooms, living rooms, and forums across the globe. Will this be the search that finally brings MH370 home? Peter Foley, the man who had overseen the previous official search, summed up the feeling of many cautious optimism. If this mission failed, he warned it might be the last for a long time. But if it succeeded, it could provide the closure that families and the world had longed for. Because behind every headline about technology, behind every sonar scan and data model, there were mothers, fathers, siblings, children, people who had waited more than a decade for answers, people who deserved to know where their loved ones spent their final moments. And as the Armada 7806 continued its journey across the search zone, a quiet determination fueled the mission. It was no longer just about finding wreckage. It was about ending the silence, about giving the lost a resting place that was known, not hidden, about bringing peace to families who had lived with an unbearable question mark for far too long. Could this truly be the moment when technology and perseverance finally outmatched the ocean's mystery? Could this be the chapter that ends the story, not with speculation, but with truth the world waits and hopes?